What's up, guys? It's Blake back here on Southeastern 14. Yes, I'm flying solo here for our second round predictions for the SEC tournament, and hope you guys have already checked out. We put up this morning our live show we did from Bearded Iris Brewery in Nashville, and you can check that out. Chris and I talked about a lot of different storylines for the SEC tournament and all of that good stuff. We actually picked our winner there too, but as we always do, if you followed the channel before, you know we go through each game day. We'll put up our picks for that day and based on how the bracket unfolds. So even though we picked our winners for the tournament up front in our live show, we will still go through and pick all the games as the bracket unfolds, and that's what I'm going to do here. So now you guys can just blame me for bad picks and not Chris because I'm flying solo on this one. But again, we will be at the SEC tournament, and I'll get Chris's picks once we're at the tournament. That way, I can put them in the comments. That way, if I get all of these wrong, we can see how many he gets right too. So, all right, let's start off the top of the bracket. We've got Florida, Mississippi State, the 8-9 game here. Winner goes on to play Alabama. You guys know we've talked about this game a lot in terms of what it means for Mississippi State. It's a huge game because I think, again, as you'll see kind of when you watch the other video, we really went into looking at Mississippi State's setup here in terms of the bracketology and all that. And just, do they need to win this game? I think we're both on the consensus here that they do. And I think if they lose, you do not want to be sitting there in that spot for the NCAA tournament committee to give you any sort of reason to hold you out. And so I kind of see this as a must win for Mississippi State. You look back at when these two teams played in January. Florida won that game by 2 in Starkville. As we know, hard place to win. But Florida went in there, won by 2. Of course, Castleton was playing at the time. And so I think this is one of those games where you guys know when we talked about this, either in the live streams or some of the other videos, to me, this tournament is about a lot of it is about motivation sometimes. And I think when you look at what Mississippi State has to play for here, I feel like just based on the matchup without Castleton in there, knowing what Toulouse Smith is capable of, we've kind of talked too. We put Cam Matthews on our all underrated team in our SEC awards, so I think he's someone else you can look at here. Just again, that can really help them from a size standpoint, a rebounding, all those things for Mississippi State, and so I just feel like when you have a neutral court game like this, and you've got these two teams that really, I mean, we know Mississippi State has leaned on defense a lot. We talked about Florida's defense, right, for a while. I don't know that their defense was as good, of course. Once Castleton went out, I think they were giving up more buckets, but I think it's a pretty even type matchup when you just look at it from a scoring standpoint. Chris always gives you sort of the odds and all that. What's the projections? I mean, Ken Palm has this as a 1-point game in favor of Mississippi State. Now, again, a lot of that's going to factor in Colin Castleton, and he's not playing. So I think when you take it from that standpoint, I'm going to give the nod to Mississippi State. I look at them and I see a team that hopefully understands, and I think Chris Jans always does a good job of this because he's been someone who's coached in the NCAA tournament quite a few times now when he was at New Mexico State, and I think he understands, certainly the value of a conference tournament. And really, now that they're in this spot, I feel like he's going to have his team ready to play here. And I think just the defense, we always say, right? Defense travels, and I'm going to give the edge to Mississippi State here. I think they're a team that has to win this game to give the SEC, that eighth team into the field. And so I'll give them the slight nod to do it here, but should be an interesting game. You never know. Day games, SEC tournament can get wild sometimes. So I'll take Mississippi State, though, in this one. All right. The afternoon game, Tennessee taking on Ole Miss. Of course, Ole Miss beat South Carolina on Wednesday night. And I tell you, you go back, if you're just looking at results, right? Remember, Tennessee and Ole Miss played back in, I was that December? Yeah, they played in December 28th, first game of the SEC play. Tennessee won there by 4. Now, let's think. It's been a long time since December the 28th. And so both teams are a little bit different now. And, Zakai Ziegler played well in that game. I think he had 13 points. I'm looking at the stats here. Yeah, a couple steals, 29 points, or excuse me, 29 minutes. And, I think this is one of those games where, and I'm going to say this about the Vanderbilt LSU game in a few minutes, but to me, guys, we always say it, right? The teams that get hot, whether it's Wednesday, Thursday, the teams that have played who then go play a team that hasn't played. We see this in tournament time all the time. And I think Ole Miss is the kind of team, what do they have to lose, right? And that's what we said about all these four teams that were playing on Wednesday night. What do they have to lose? And obviously we've talked a lot about, and you'll see in the live show when you watch it. We talked about the Chris Beard situation in Ole Miss. Seems like that's the direction everything's headed in. I think I'd be more surprised than not if he's not the next head coach at Ole Miss. So, but what they're doing now is, these guys are playing for win case, and they came out, got a nice win against South Carolina. Now, again, you go into a setup here. We have nothing to lose against Tennessee. They played well against them the first time. Two teams that are, I think certainly their strengths are going to lie on the defensive end of the floor. And, for me, it's just a matter of what Tennessee team do you get here? And you guys have heard me say, if you've watched some of the other videos, if you watch some of the other stuff I've done this week, radio, podcasts, and stuff, you've heard me call Tennessee by two words: the wild card. Like, I think Tennessee's the wild card here. I think they could win this tournament. I think they could also come out and it's a team that really has not been fully healthy the entire season. I don't know it's the worst thing in the world, but if Tennessee got bounced out of this tournament early, just for them to rest up and be ready for the start of the NCAA tournament next week. But again, Tennessee, looking at the numbers here, Ken Palm has as a 13-point game in Tennessee's favor. I just feel like, it's hard to pick against Tennessee in this spot, because if you're just, taking the two teams and putting them out there and saying, okay, best case scenario, what do you get here? I mean, Tennessee's the better team. But, again, I think motivation's important. I don't think the Vols, and Chris and I will talk about this when we do kind of a bracketology update. We may try to do that today from the tournament. But I don't know that Tennessee's seeding is going to change all that much no matter what happens in this tournament. Maybe if they win it, they get up to a 2 seed. It's certainly possible, but I think they wind up as a 3 or 4 either way. So, I mean, clearly, guys, I'm taking Tennessee to win the game, but I can't say I'd be shocked, if this thing's closer than people think. But I also know that at their best, if Tennessee, has all their guys out there and they're at their best, which obviously they won't have Scott Ziegler, but I think, they can be really good. And would I be shocked if Tennessee won this game by 15 plus if they come out, and put on one of those Tennessee-esque defensive performances? No, I wouldn't. But I just think it's hard to know, because to me, they're the wild card. But I'll pick Tennessee to win this one. I just think their defense will probably do enough. Even if their offense is still struggling a little bit, I think their defense will do enough to hold Ole Miss off here in this one. So, of course, the winner of that goes on to play Missouri on Friday. Now we get to the night session, and I'm telling you, this night session, the setup is very interesting now, because sometimes on Thursday you don't really know what the matchups are going to be, but I think you've got two very interesting matchups here in the second round here. The night session, like it's SEC basketball after dark, and you've got two games here that I think are very intriguing. Of course, we start with Auburn and Arkansas, the 7-10 game. Yes, I've seen a lot of people say, hey, this may be the best 7-10 game we've ever seen in the SEC tournament. Arkansas may be the best 10 seed we've ever seen in the SEC tournament. I mean, they could be. I'd have to go back and look at, my notes from previous years, but this is going to be a battle. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like, this is a very interesting game. And as we discussed, one of our recent bracketology videos, if you think about it, it really is good that these two teams got paired with each other, because they both avoid a bad loss. Although, as we said, we thought they were both in the tournament based on where it was at. And look, we've talked before, right? You guys know, everybody's kind of talking about the Arkansas resume and wondering, why are they just a slam dunk lock? But as Chris has pointed out, the metrics love them, the predictive metrics love them. Yes, they went 8-10 in the league, but they do have the Nick Smith thing built in. And of course, you guys know, as I pointed out, look, they haven't played, they haven't won games necessarily other than Florida and Georgia with him in there. But I don't think that's not on the talent. I think that's just more of a, hey, they played some really tough teams, and can they just put it all together to beat a good team? Because I think Auburn is a good team. And, you saw Auburn to get that momentum that they needed. Really, I think you go back to the Alabama game, and I know, look, let's be honest, right? Like, Auburn fans are not going to take a moral victory against Alabama in any way, shape, or form. But when you looked at how they played in that game, and then they followed up with a win against Tennessee, I think you can certainly feel like Auburn has a lot more positive momentum heading into this versus Arkansas. And so this certainly sets up to be one of those games that, and I've joked about this before, as you guys know, I mean, this could be a free throw shooting game where you get two teams that are just in attack mode here, putting it all on the line, and, they just sort of beat each other up. And you get kind of a very physical type game where there's a lot of free throw shot. Because, again, these are not two teams that are going to lean on their outside shooting. Although, I do want to point this out, and we've said this in a couple of the recent videos. Look, Auburn has shot the ball a lot better recently. And I think that's something that if you're looking for a team that can get hot here, and I think Auburn could be one of those teams, um, I wonder if they just start shooting the ball better, and can that lead Auburn to one of those kind of magical runs in this tournament? I think it's certainly possible. So I think you look from all those different things, okay, and you just wonder, how does this game play out? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have no idea which way to go on this game. Ken Palm has this as a Arkansas by one. I think they're favored by a point in this game. And again, I don't know what the betting odds are. I'll try to look this up now, but I haven't looked at them yet. But that's why I leave Chris in charge of those things. You guys know, but I do look at this one, and I have no idea with any confidence how this game plays out just based on what we've seen from these two teams. And again, which Arkansas are you getting? Which Auburn are you getting? I think those are all sort of fair questions. I think this game, I'm looking at it now on covers. Is this right? Arkansas opened, excuse me, Auburn opened as a 1.5 point favorite or a 1 point favorite, and now Arkansas is favored by two, I believe. So Arkansas, oh yeah, okay. Auburn opened as a 1 point favorite. Arkansas looks like now is favored by 2.5 or two. So that's a very interesting, kind of jump in the line there. But all right, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. You know I like to do this. When I look at this game, again, I really think it comes down to, can Auburn hit some outside shots like they have been doing? Can they add that equalizer here? Because I don't, again, Arkansas, I don't feel like is going to be able to consistently knock those shots down. That's something we've been looking for from them. We've said it all season. I mean, they've made a few more since Nick Smith has been back, but it's not been something consistent. And I'm really curious to see, again, defensively, how both of these teams kind of push each other, and just again, to see how this game plays out. Last time around, Auburn won by 13. That was in Neville Arena. That was in early January. Again, both teams in different spots. Smith did not play for Arkansas at the time. That was a big game. Anthony Black got to the free throw line 16 times in that one. Arkansas shot 32 free throws. Auburn shot 22 free throws. They were combined 40 something fouls, I think. Something Arkansas did well in that game was they did well on the boards. They got 17 offensive rebounds. I think that's something that will be important here. So I said all that to lead up to this. I did an SEC tournament space on Twitter the other night, and I picked Auburn to win there. I said, I think I'm going to lean Auburn right now. I said, but I'm going to reserve the right to change my pick. So, so that way I can hedge my bets here. I'm going to pick Arkansas on our video. That way, either way, I can point to one or the other. But you guys know I have fun with this, but I really don't know. And that's the best thing to tell you. Like, even watching the SEC all season, I think Chris would say the same thing. We actually talked about this yesterday. And if you watch our previous video without spoiling it, Chris did make a pretty strong prediction about one of these teams potentially making a run and winning the whole thing. So I think that is something to note. And I'm going to pick Arkansas in this one because I don't have a great feel here. I think these two teams are, confidence, momentum type teams where if you just give them a little bit of that, which I think Arkansas really needs right now. I think if you just give them a little bit of that in this tournament, they absolutely have a path to make a run here. But again, I could say the same thing about Auburn. So I'll pick Arkansas in this video. That way I hedge my bets. And this is a 50-50 game to me. And I think it'll be probably one of the more thrilling games of this tournament period, I think, in any scenario. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, we'll wrap up quickly with the Vanderbilt LSU game. Like I said, this is intriguing because of why. Vanderbilt's won 8 of their last 9 games, and who beat them? LSU beat them. LSU 2-16 in the league, but they beat Vanderbilt. That was a couple weeks ago now, February 22nd. They won that game in Baton Rouge. That was, I put the stat out, either the second or third highest point total of the season for LSU in that game. And why? Why did it happen, right? KJ Williams went for 35 points in that game, was knocking down threes, had 10 rebounds. Of course, Liam Robbins was still playing too for Vanderbilt. He was huge in that one, 23 and 11, and he had 9 blocks. I mean, he's a block away from a triple-double, guys. So let's not forget that, but he's not going to be on the floor here. So I think that's what makes this interesting, knowing how well Robbins played against LSU the first time, but he's not going to be there. And 9 block shots in that game. Think about how much that impacted LSU offensively, yet they were still able to score 84 points. Now, I don't think LSU is going to have, that same type of offensive performance necessarily. But what we do know is that KJ Williams is capable of it. And that's why I think if you're Vanderbilt, you're nervous here because you know how well this guy can play. Against Georgia, he went for 18-8. I mean, look, he is, as we said, he is absolutely one of the best players in the league. I think we undervalued him. I had him higher on my list in terms of when we did our all, SEC awards. Like I said, it was a composite staff vote, but just because I know he played on the worst team in the league, but man, this guy's good. And I think when you look at how this game could play out, I'm very curious to see what Vanderbilt can do defensively to try to make sure what happened last time doesn't happen this time. Because if it does, I think that puts a lot of pressure on this Vanderbilt team. Which again, let's be honest, there is pressure on Vanderbilt because not only are they the higher seed, but they are a team that has to find a way if they want to get to the NCAA tournament to win this game and then win the next game and then probably need to win the next game now based on how the bubbles played out. So I think if we keep all that in mind, I fully expect this to be a a good game. Ken Pom has this 6 point in favor of Vanderbilt, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's about right because I think when you look at it, I'm going to find the line here right now. I want to say this line's probably lower than that. Yeah, I'm seeing Vanderbilt minus 3.5 or 4. So that sounds about right to me. I feel like this is your typical last game of the SEC tournament, night game scenario on a Thursday. You've got a team again with nothing to lose like LSU. You've got Vanderbilt who has everything to gain, just continuing to try to rack up wins to get there with a chance to get into the NCAA tournament. There's also the revenge factor, right? Of Vanderbilt knowing, and look, I'll say this. I know some people are saying, well, if Vanderbilt would only beat LSU, they'd be in right now. I don't think that's the case. We talked about that before in the bracketology. Even if they win that game, in all honesty, I think they're still sitting outside the tournament field right now. But that did not help, as we know, because that was a loss on the road to, I think, what that would have been a quad 3 loss, probably at LSU. So yeah, I think that the elements are here for this to be a very, very exciting game because of what KJ Williams brings. But also on the other side, I think you're just very curious knowing that Jerry Stackhouse, the way he game plans, and I think he's proven in terms of putting his guys in the position to make this run. He's put his guys there from a strategic standpoint. He's done a great job with that. Strategically, what do they do to try to counter what KJ Williams can do without Liam Robbins on the floor? And I'm very curious to see what happens there from that standpoint. Boy, I almost want to pick the upset here, guys, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give Vanderbilt a slight edge here because again, I do think they have a lot to play for, and I do like what I've seen in terms of Jerry Stackhouse having his guys ready to play. But I cannot tell you with any confidence that I think that they're going to be able to go out and really, you know, I'm not sure what they're going to do to be able to stop KJ Williams. And look, it may not matter, right? Because we've always talked about with LSU some of the issues sometimes that KJ Williams gets his, but you don't get enough elsewhere. Well, I mean, this could be one of those situations where, look at that game against Georgia. They got some stuff from, I mean, Sean Phillips had 13. That was the big talking point, right? Had 13 points, went for 10 rebounds. And this is a guy who's not played much at all this season. So he just goes off and has a big game. So I think that, those are all the elements you need if you're LSU to pull off this win. Just get something out of Adam Miller, Trey Hannibal, which is that's what they got in that game against Georgia. Can they get some more of that balance and just kind of have one of those KJ Williams type games? I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to take Vanderbilt slight margin in this one because I do think this should be a really good game just based on the matchup that's there. So there you go, guys. There are picks for second round of the SEC tournament in Nashville. And again, we will have a lot more stuff coming for you. I don't know what we'll be able to do necessarily from the arena. So our next video may just be, again, tomorrow morning looking at the quarterfinal action. But either way, to follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. You can follow me at the Blake Lovell. You can follow, our Southeastern 14 account at 14 Southeastern. Guys, I'm not used to like talking nonstop for 20 minutes. So like my throat, I like get my water break when Chris is talking. So I don't get all that here, but you can check everything out. Hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you guys as always. Again, be sure to check out the live show we did. That was a lot of fun. And as you'll see, we had a lot of fun with the live show. So be sure to check that video out. It's up and a lot more stuff on the way, of course, this week as we go throughout the SEC tournament and get ready for Selection Sunday. So appreciate you guys as always. And we'll talk to you next time here on Southeastern 14.